Mornings are better with a warm beverage, even for Latter-day Saints. Meet Postum, the ideal coffee alternative and proud sponsor of This Week in Mormons podcast. Spotted on the coffee aisle at Smith's Grocery or at your local nearby store. Can't locate it? No worries. Order it at postum.com. Explore delicious recipes to tailor your Postum experience. Start your day off right with Postum.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Mormons, the International Edition. My name is Georgia Travers, and I'm joined here by Daniel Ferreira. How are you, Daniel?
Very good. I'm happy because it's spring here, so we're finally seeing trees and leaves blossoming, and then the flowers. So I think it's a very nice period of the year after a long and miserable winter. I think it's just great to have spring coming and then all the benefits of that. So what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same. I live in the UK, for listeners who aren't aware from the accent. Daniel, you live in New York State, don't you? So
Yes,
you get pretty
upstate.
harsh,
Yes.
upstate New York. So you get pretty
Yes.
harsh winters. So coming out of
Yes.
that must be quite nice for you, I presume.
Yeah, and I'm not used to this. I mean, I come from a very Mediterranean kind of weather, so it's 4 seasons, never too hot, never too cold. So this one is, it's been a second year though, and I'm more adjusted to it, but I wouldn't say that I enjoy it. It's just the way things are, right? So you
Yeah,
have to
you've
deal with
just
that.
got to endure it rather than enjoy it, maybe.
Yes.
Would be a
Yes.
good phrase. Where else have you lived? I don't actually know this. So you grew up in Chile, right?
Yes. 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 I grew up in San Fernando, which is a very, very small town in like 2 hours from the capital city. Then I moved 2 hours north the capital city in Villa Alemana, where Daniel Yanez and I we share this particular place in the world. And then I went on a mission and I served in Colombia. So I lived for 2 years in Colombia, in Barranquilla, in the coast, in the Atlantic coast. And my dad is Uruguayan, so I've been in Uruguay sometimes as well. And then Santiago, where I married my wife, and we lived there until 2 years ago, where we moved here, and here we are. So I haven't been living in so many places, I would say, but I've been fortunate enough to see some places and some countries in my lifetime.
Yeah, and certainly around South America, it sounds like you've lived in a few places. So you've seen a
Yes,
fair deal.
yes, and I visited some other countries as well in South America. So yeah, it's been a good, interesting.
Well, great. And, listeners might notice that we're not joined today by our third host, which is Daniel Yanez. So it's actually his wife Sylvia's birthday, I believe, today. So happy birthday, Sylvia. Just a shout
Happy
out to you
birthday!
there. And we hope that you two are having a lovely evening with whatever you're doing at this current time. So let's get straight into our news for this week. We have to admit it's been a bit of a slow news week, so not a lot has been going on. I think we've had the aftermath of General Conference and several articles to do with General Conference, but that's already been covered a fair deal. So we're actually going to jump straight into a news article, and it's about the Joseph Smith papers. So this week, the church has released some legal documents, which they've been compiling for a really long time. But on the 17th of April, I believe, the church released a statement about the publication of the legal records. This was at a church media event, and it says Legal Records Case Introductions, that's the name, is a single volume compilation of historical introductions previously published at josephsmithpapers.org, along with explanatory essays on Joseph Smith's criminal and civil proceedings, his role as a judge in Nauvoo, Illinois, and the Nauvoo Municipal Court's use of habeas corpus. I'm not sure if I've said that correctly. It is only available in an ebook format. So just a different side to Joseph Smith, maybe. What are your thoughts on this, Daniel?
I mean, when I was younger, I took an institute class that was about the history of the church, right? And I remember being obsessed with this book for some time and reading about some of the experiences the saints were having, and let's also take into consideration that the U.S. was a very vast land, and they were just establishing themselves, right, fleeing from Europe, and So everything was, ongoing, right? It was like new lands, new rules establishing themselves. So one of the many hats, right? If we use that expression, one of the many hats Joseph Smith had to use was as a major, right? And we wouldn't imagine him as a major, I guess. It's like thinking of him as a sheriff, I don't know, or as a baker, or I don't know,
I know, I've
as a
never thought of
cook,
him like
right?
that. It's
Yeah.
like maybe thinking of Jesus as a carpenter. We so rarely think of our leaders outside of their traditional ecclesiastical roles.
So I think it's always interesting, just to try to understand how things were at that time. And definitely what we know so far is that there was very little structure, right? And rules were being, established around those years and then enforced from state wise, right? And whatnot. So what I think is interesting is, okay, Joseph Smith, a spiritual leader, being a major, that is being kind of a politician, right? And making sure that the people living in his county or in his municipality, right, were taken care of and were safe, right? And they have what was needed for their basic needs, right? Which I think is any major role, right? So I think first shows some unseen traits of his character and his capacity to deal with this uncertain things. And again, let's get back into this whole idea that Joseph was not an educated person, right? He didn't go to college, right? He didn't get a degree in political science, right? Or I don't know, religious studies, right? So that is also one of the biggest characteristics of his work, right? Because that means that what we enjoy as a church today, and what we claim, right, as a church today, is that he was inspired, right? But in this particular case of a civil servant kind of position, I am very interested on reading, of course, this ebook with more detail, and then seeing how these cases unfold and how they, present his, I hope, Christ-like character, right? And even if he made mistakes in the process, that will be a very human thing for him to happen, because it wasn't his calling, right? Again, it was his appointment, his responsibility as a civil servant. So I don't know. What do you think about it, Georgia? What are your feelings?
So I've just had a skim through the article today. I haven't had a chance to look at the papers yet in any great detail, but I think you bring up an interesting point about how human he is. So there are two sides to these papers. There's Joseph Smith's life, like you said, as a sort of a law enforcement role. I'm not sure of his exact position in wherever he was, but they also show one instance where he was found guilty. So I just want to talk you through that. I find it fascinating. So it says historians found one instance in all of Joseph's legal cases where he was found guilty of a criminal complaint. In 1843, Joseph was involved in an altercation with a local county official named Walter Bagby. The two had a long history. Joseph suspected Bagby, a tax collector, of cheating the Latter-day Saints, and one day in the streets of Nauvoo, things turned violent as the two exchanged words. Bagby reached for a rock, but before he could throw it, Joseph jumped down and struck him 2 or 3 times. Joseph pleaded guilty immediately to the local justice of the peace and paid a fine. So
Very human.
fascinating.
Very
Yeah,
human.
very
Yeah.
human. I mean, there's so much to unpack here. I don't think we have the time. I do enjoy the fact that the church aren't trying to cover up the fact that this prophet was a human and that he made big mistakes throughout his life. I feel like maybe in the not too distant past we were painting, or we were looking at Joseph Smith through rose-tinted glasses, and we were trying to pretend that he never did anything wrong. Here we see in the Joseph Smith papers a clear example of where he got a bit fiery, but the same thing happened in the Bible, wasn't it? James and John were called the sons of thunder. They had that nickname. They were
Yes.
apostles,
Yeah.
but they were maybe a bit fiery
Yes.
as well. So I think it just speaks of our humanity. I have so many flaws myself. I'm so far from perfect, but I am still trying to serve and to put my best foot forward within my church life. And I just like it that extends all the way to our top leaders as well. I mean, we could probably come up with examples within our modern day apostles of places where they've made mistakes as well. But I think it's good to just accept we're all human, we all make mistakes, and we're not trying to cover anything up about Joseph Smith's past.
And I think I would add to that just because we want to be better, just because we want to improve ourselves, that doesn't mean that there are many things we have to repent about our lives. And repentance is a daily endeavor, right? I mean, we should be repenting from our sins every day. So by assuming we're trying to be better, we're trying to become better, and trying to portray that it's possible to overcome challenges and difficulties, doesn't mean that everything's perfect due to it, right? And I think this good picture, right, because it's kind of an instantaneous picture of Joseph, right, just sending some punches, right, or just pleading guilty, is just a good way to see that he was a human being. He was not infallible. He was not like a saint like other religious denominations have saints, right? People that had perfect, spotless lives. We don't think about him as that, right? We don't think of him as a saint. We think about him as someone that was called from God, serve a huge purpose for what we benefit from today, right? But that doesn't mean that he was perfect at any possible level.
Yeah.
And I've never heard of any of his documents saying he was perfect, or claiming something around those lines, right?
Yeah, this is a slight tangent, but I'll be very interested to see in the new hymn book if they keep praise to the man or if they ditch it. So I noticed at General Conference as well that we sing a lot, "We thank thee, O God, for a prophet." That combined with praise to the man. And then in the UK, our national anthem is "God Save the King." And I think I have a problem with all three of those songs, genuinely, because it's kind of worshipping a person rather than worshipping Jesus. And I feel like at the end of the day, we should be worshipping Jesus. "God Save the King" to me is such a strange anthem. I don't know why it's our national anthem. And also, if you were the king, wouldn't you feel so strange singing that song about yourself? The same with the prophet. "We thank thee, O God, for a prophet." I just don't know that I would want to sing that about myself if I were the prophet or if I were the king.
Yeah, yeah, but at the same time, it's what humans do, right? Like acknowledge this person that is doing right, or has been appointed to that. It's like this, again, human nature of having a model or someone that we want to look after and want to think of someone that is kind of close to God or closer to God than we are, right? But at the
Okay,
same
yeah.
time, naively thinking that this people, because they're closer or because of this calling, they're perfect, right? And I think around those lines, it's our own fault, right, thinking about it, because they haven't claimed any of those assumptions we already have. So I think it's a matter of our own expectations of what they should be like instead of what they actually are.
And I suppose if you do look at the lyrics, it does make a little bit more sense. It's not so much hero worship; it's more just being grateful for what we've got. I mean, it's great that we do, that the heavens aren't closed, that we do have a prophet who speaks to us. And I suppose rather than focusing on the person, it's focusing on the process, maybe, just to sort of give a little bit of a counter argument there.
So that's great. So we hope that you get the chance to read this new book, right? Ebook at this point. So that would be a great opportunity to get to understand more about the multiple hats and about the nature, right, of the human, right? Besides the calling. And I think that's always, refreshing, and I think it's always needed in terms of our own, assumptions. And I wouldn't say faith, because it's not a matter of faith in this case. It's a matter of just assumptions about who he should be or how he was, right? So
Yeah.
that's all very, very, very interesting. We've got a second set of news that are very, very good and are related, of course, to the fact that we just had General Conference and we have temples in different stages, in different, areas of development. But we've got temples, which is again one of the prime components of our worship and our doctrine as members of the church. Probably one of the only things that are so relevant to us in terms of our time spent, resources spent, is temples. So would you like to talk about some of them, Georgia, first?
Yeah, well, let me start with the Manti Utah Temple, and I have a story to tell about that one. So, the news is that it is being rededicated this Sunday, the 21st of April. It's been closed for a while. They've been redoing the artwork, they've been sort of bringing it more in line with, I suppose, just modernizing it, and it's going to be rededicated, which is exciting. So my story to tell about it. So I had been a member of the church for 1 year. It was 2015. I joined the church in 2014. 2015, I graduated from university and I decided to go over to the USA. I went to Arizona and Utah and Oregon. I had a brilliant time. And while I was in Utah, I went on a bit of a temple road trip with one of the sister missionaries who taught me. So shout out to Jocelyn. We had a really, really great time. And we found ourselves at the Manti Utah Temple, which is a very unique temple. You let me know earlier today, Daniel, that it was the third temple in operations, a real pioneer temple. And we were in the endowment session, and we started noticing that there were just a lot of people who seemed to know each other around us, and we got a bit confused and we sort of just left it. It just looked like everyone kind of seemed like really friendly with one another. But we left it. Anyway, we get to the celestial room and we realize that the entire time we've been in the session, we have been part of a massive wedding party, and we are the only two people who don't know the rest of the group. So someone had decided, I guess on that day, that they were all going to do a session, like one big family and friend group were going to do a session. And somehow my friend Jocelyn and I just occupied the only two seats that weren't occupied by a family. So everyone just starts greeting each other in the celestial room, and we're just sitting there thinking, we're not
What are we
invited to
doing
the
here?
party.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
we don't understand. So we just sort of excused ourselves quietly, but that temple brings back that memory for me, and just how funny it was that we got this sense of just what's going on here. What, these people all seem so familiar with one another. And then we get to the celestial room, and sure enough, they're all hugging each other, they're all greeting one another, they're obviously old friends and family and whatnot. So just that's my link to that temple. Wonderful news that it's going to be rededicated this weekend.
Yes, and if you're not familiarized with it, as you mentioned, it has a very peculiar architecture. I think is one of those temples that is worth showing to anyone that is knowing more about the church, again, because of the architecture and the way it was developed. And one of the lovely things about temples in the church is that architects and people that work in them kind of either preserve or take in the local architecture in most of the cases, which is another interesting feature. And then that particular temple stands out in terms of the other temples in Utah, I would say, according to the pictures and the drawings I've been able to see. So that is great. It's always great news to hear that more temples are rededicated and they're set ready for a wider audience to use them and to worship there. So that's fantastic. We've
Yeah,
got a
at the
second
moment,
temple. Sorry, yes.
oh, I was just going to say, at the moment in the UK, there is a huge buzz for this Edinburgh, Scotland temple that was announced at General Conference. Because although I don't live anywhere close, I live about 8 hours drive from Scotland. We have several Scottish members within our congregations, and they just love the fact there's going to be a Scotland temple. I've heard it announced, from so many different people who are all really, really excited. So just wanted to mention that there as well. And please do carry on with some more temple news, Daniel.
Sure. I mean, I was just thinking, if it's 8 hours, would you do that trip?
I would probably fly. It's about an hour to fly. I've been to
Okay.
Edinburgh once before. It's a really nice city. It's beautiful. And I know that there's quite a bit of church history there. I probably would. There's also the Birmingham Temple, which will be about 2 hours from where I live. The London Temple is about an hour and a half, but you tend to get caught in really bad traffic. So I think the Birmingham Temple, although it'll be further away, it'll be slightly more reliable in terms of the traffic. So I may end up going to that one a little bit more often. And then we have the Preston Temple. That's about 4 hours from me.
Okay. All of them are somewhat distant still for you. Yes, in a
Yes.
way, yes. It's similar to me, yes. Yes. We've got the Mendoza Temple open doors announced, and they're going to be from August 22 to September 7th. And Mendoza also hits home in a way, although I visited Mendoza a couple of times. Yeah, more than a couple. But Mendoza is like, I don't know, 6 hours driving from Santiago, from Chile's capital city. So it's a lovely place. Mendoza is well known for its meat and its vineyards, right? And its olive, and they produce lots of olive oil. They have, so that temple would be a good blessing, a huge blessing for the people around that area. Actually, all the members from Mendoza would go to Santiago to the temple because that was their closest temple. Even their capital city is, let's say, 20 hours driving or 22 hours driving from Mendoza.
That's
So
unbelievable.
so the closest temple for them was Santiago for many many years.
Hmm.
So lots of people, Argentinians, would go to Santiago and to for the temple and to their endowment sessions and everything. So hearing that finally this temple is finally finished and therefore ready to have their open doors, again, it's just a wonderful thing to hear. Although people might say, yes, there's not that many members attending church anymore, or we miss those that are not with us anymore, and we'll miss them, right? Still, right, the gospel is still being shared and still being accepted, and people are willing to do covenants with God, and therefore, for me, the biggest signal of church growth would be temple dedications and temple announcements, because as we've mentioned many many times in the past, and Daniel Yanez have done a very extensive argument about, the budgeting of how you build temples and how much you spend and the operation costs and everything. What's important is, if we build them, it is because there's a growing need in those areas, and because there's we're growing member population that wants to worship, and they're ready to go and to attend, and that's wonderful. So all the best for the members in Mendoza that are going to have a temple there, and then shout out for them, and all the people in the neighboring areas that will have the access, or an easier access, right, to a temple. They wouldn't have to wait months or years to save enough money to go to their closest temple. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's great that temples are really worldwide. Just some other temple news. The Cleveland, Ohio groundbreaking has been announced for the 1st of June of this year. The Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania temple is going to have its open house from the 16th of August to the 31st of August. And the site plans have been released for the Kananga Democratic Republic of the Congo temple. So lots of temple news this week. I have another thought, another question for you. So back in the day, in the Old Testament, they had the Tabernacle, didn't they? And that
Yes,
was a traveling temple. So I
correct.
wonder if the tabernacle would ever be reintroduced in the form of maybe a pop up temple in maybe a meeting house or something like that. I mean, it's within the realms of possibility. It's happened in ancient times. Do you ever see that happening?
I love the idea. I think it's, but if we go back to what happened, it was pop up because they were moving, right? They were going to their promised land. So because of that, they couldn't build one in a single location. So
Because
they
they
were
were
kind of,
moving, they were
yeah. So they were
nomadic.
kind of
Okay.
authorized, right, for the purpose of moving, to continue worshiping and continue having this opportunity, right, to go to the Holy of Holies, right. So I think my preliminary take would be that that is context dependent, right, and it will be pretty much dependent on our own circumstances. So what if, I don't know, transportation means are blocked, or we cannot drive our cars anymore, that kind of thing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
your congregation would be the place you worship and the place where you have the closest temple, right? And we've heard lots of talks about, I don't know, our houses being also, houses of the Lord and our own safe places. So I don't see it in the foreseeable future, because if I would see it, then I would think that building temples would stop, and then refurnishing, I don't know, meeting houses or something would be the new trend, right? Or building smaller temples in the premises of existing chapel buildings, kind of thing.
That would be
So,
interesting.
but again, as you said, I'm not eliminating the possibility, and I love the possibility. I think it's just, I mean, as you said, it takes you an hour and a half or 2 hours to get to the closest temple. For me, it's 2 hours, 2 hours and a half, the closest,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I have kids, so it's just not viable to go together. So most of the time, it's just one or the other that goes, right? And having a closer temple would be such a huge blessing, right? However, what I see happening in the church today kind of signals that's not necessarily in the books today. So
Mm-hmm.
again, it should be something, an external shock, an external factor that makes the church leaders ask and be inspired to decide otherwise, right? But at this point, I would love to.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen realistically. I know it's kind of a wild idea. I just wondered if, I mean, I feel like it is within the realms of possibility to one day convert chapels into temples, because ultimately all you need for the ordinances are things that you could have in a chapel. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but you you
It
you
has all
could,
the possible sense for me, at least. Yes, I hope
yeah,
you, audience,
you
and
could
people watching
convert
us,
it.
yes, yes.
You could just convert it. So I wonder if that would ever happen. It would definitely be interesting. And they're always talking about how they want to make temples and temple blessings more accessible to the people. And that would be a definite way. Another idea that I've got, and I guess the reason that I'm not in charge is because I have all these crazy ideas. And if I were in charge, then I'd probably be executing them. I feel a huge sense of spiritual connection when I'm in nature. So I would love, maybe an outdoor temple experience, in a forest, or, on a mountain with a really beautiful view or something like that. I think that would be kind of cool, to be learning
Yeah,
whilst out in nature. It's where I feel really close to my spirituality. So that's just another idea.
I mean, definitely the nature is part of who we are as well. I mean, several secular studies say the importance of us getting into nature, and the peace and the calm we get from hiking or walking. Uh, you get more oxygen there. You get in touch with yourself, right? There are plenty of benefits, right? And if we go to the Old Testament again, when you think of the higher places, right, and the places far from the humans, far from everyone else, were like holy places, right? So
Mm-hmm.
definitely, it's not that wild. I mean, there's something to it to recognize and to mention that there's something there happening in the nature that connects us to God. That I would say it's a definite yes. However, managing the whole experience outdoors would be definitely, I would say, kind of cumbersome and difficult, right? I mean,
Complicated. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, because you kind of need things, right? And even for a very terrestrial, you need restrooms, right? I mean, you need you need basic things, right? Or where do you
Basic
park, right?
facilities that would be
Basic
lacking in a
facilities, right?
forest. Yes.
What about if it starts to rain? I don't know, those kinds of very humane, very mundane things to get to think of. But yes, I mean, I like it.
I'm just throwing the idea out there. Why
But
not?
but but
It
I,
would be
I
fun.
like both the ideas, and I would like to stress this: meeting house, right? Meeting houses are definitely ready. It's just a couple of tweaks, and you could have a temple inside them.
Yeah. I guess it's
So
just from us, a plea to our church leaders. We live so far away. We have families. It's hard for us to get to the temple. Please make
please,
it easier for us.
yeah. So
But
then,
anyway, I've digressed for far too long. Do you have any final comments on that?
no, yeah, I love the ideas, and I will love to see some of them coming in my lifetime. So that
Hmm.
will be a very very interesting thing to see.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to move us on to our next story. So, a while ago, we spoke about a study which followed cell phone or mobile phone, for those of us who are speaking UK English, mobile phone data in amongst religious communities in the US. And we spoke about the trends which this researcher found. So there's a new article. It's from the University of Chicago. Devon Pope, his surname is Pope. And when I read the article for the first time, I thought it was the Pope, the
The
Catholic
Pope.
Pope, who was saying this. And then I reread it and realized it was a researcher who had the surname of Pope, which made a whole lot more sense. So he has come out and said some things about religious observance within the United States. And there's a section which particularly mentions the Latter-day Saint community. So some headlines: 1 in 345 Americans are attending the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which was a higher statistic than I thought it would be. And some other bits. So worshippers are not put off by the weather. Only 1 in 200 worshippers would not go when they would usually go if it were raining. So kind of expected. If you were already planning to go to church, you're not going to be deterred by the weather. And then something which is maybe, I wasn't surprised. It says Latter-day Saints were less likely to go to strip clubs, liquor stores, or tobacco stores. But then this did interest me. They were somewhat, they had somewhat typical attendance for casinos. So are we gambling? Are we a gambling people? I don't know.
What can I tell you from my very local South American perspective? Casinos down there will have also restaurants and will have also shows,
Ah,
right?
okay. This makes sense. I've never been to a casino, just as a disclaimer.
And I've been just a couple of times and never played because I'm broke all the time, so I wouldn't dare to play.
Otherwise, you
But
would, of course.
yes, but what I'm trying to say here is that some casinos, I don't know how this, equates with the US, right? I understand that in the US casinos are just casinos. But if you think of Las Vegas, I mean the biggest shows happen in casinos. So I would assume, my assumption, it's just an assumption. So people that are hearing us or watching us, you can, fact check us, or you can send an email telling us if we're right or wrong about this. But they should have shows, they should have, I don't know, entertainment, because my understanding is that casinos today should be, a whole experience. So you don't go only and play with the machines or with I don't know, blackjack or whatever, but you also need high quality food, high quality entertainment, so they can keep you all day long, right? Kind of thing, right? So if not, it's not a good business. So that being said, I could, infer that attending a casino, and it's not inherently bad, right? I mean, going to a show. I mean, I like music. We've discussed this lengthy of my connection with music and everything. But what I'm trying to say here is that going to places is not inherently bad. Is what you decide to do in a place is what could be, doesn't necessarily needs to be, but could be bad for you. But that's a personal choice. So even in the
Yeah.
worst of places, if you decide to abstain yourself from, I don't know, from drinking or I don't know, smoking or whatever, all good. Back in the day when I was younger and I went clubbing to a pub or whatever to dance, people were smoking. Today the law in my home country prohibits them. But
Hmm.
if I wanted to go dancing, you would be like smelling horrible after the
Hmm.
clubbing thing, because your clothes will be, smelly of tobacco, right? And but nowadays that's no longer a thing. So people cannot smoke. If they want to smoke, they need to go out.
Hmm.
So those small things make a difference. So I assume this is. this casino thing.
That's our assumption. Either that or we're missing something and we're a gambling, a church of gamblers. Who knows?
Yes,
It's
yes,
either
and
one way or
if
the other.
people have money for that, yeah, it's their loss. I think, yeah, the probabilities of winning very, very low. So something interesting, something relevant to mention is that this is not a church related, as you said, is not a church related research project. Actually, it was published in a very high end, outlet. Is the National Bureau of Economic Research, which is
Hmm.
top, like top 10. And people might say yes, but data from smartphones is not very reliable because I don't know the signal, or I don't know the location. Well, yes, all social science studies will have to deal with this, kind of variance in the data collection. But this is a very, well done study, and doing research with cell phone data is one of the trends today in economics. So I wouldn't dare to say it's not reliable at all. And once we're thinking about averages, which is basically what this type of research does, this is definitely a good one. So I would definitely trust. And this is good. I mean, it's always good to know us as a group of people, right?
Hmm.
From the lens of someone that has nothing to do with us.
Yeah, and it wasn't just about our faith group either. It was about all faith groups. So to finish, I'm going to quiz you. So, which religious organization do you think had the highest attendance for going to the gym? Was it Muslim people, Sikh people, or Jewish people? Muslim, Sikhs, or Jewish people? What do you think?
Jewish, absolutely. Yes.
How
Have you
did
ever
you know?
seen
Yes.
have you ever seen Jesus Christ's abs? Yes, all the depictions show him with abs, so probably he was big into gym. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely Jewish people are fit people. I would say that I, I wouldn't doubt them use the gym very frequently. I don't see unfit Jewish people around, so I would trust that
Yeah.
they are very, very fit.
So it said Jewish synagogue attenders were the group who were most likely to visit the gym. Who would have known?
Yeah, we should probably imitate them a little bit in that space, right? So we reduce those chronic illnesses we're all suffering after a certain age, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Maybe we
that's
can
that's
get
good.
into that another day.
Yes, yes. We can discuss about, yeah, the word of wisdom, and then how it applies
Oh,
in a
I've got lots
wider
of interesting
sense.
things to say. Let's not open that can of worms today. Let's come back to that on a
Okay,
different day.
okay. Let's move on with our vices, and yes.
Well, can
So
we jump to Peru? Would that be okay?
definitely
Can I talk us through this one? So this is a
yes.
lovely story. This is from the 17th of April. UNICEF and the church collaborate to help youth in Peru. So the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has given nearly 1 million US dollars to UNICEF to improve the health and development of children in Peru. And it focuses on two projects. The first will focus on early detection of vision and hearing problems in newborns, helping more than 8,000 children. And the second project will concentrate on improving access to water and hygiene services in 20 schools, benefiting 20,000 students. So, a really lovely story there that's come out on that collaboration between UNICEF and the church in Peru.
There has been lots of, controversy about, the church wealth and church funds, right? And what have you. And I think this kind of news, if you start collecting, the amounts, the efforts, and the actual help that the church is able to provide, again, probably I'm very, very biased, but I don't see any other religious organization doing so much in so little history, right? We're fairly new church, right? And although we're new, I am proud of the way, church leaders have been able to, let's say, to decide how these funds can be used or can be put in good use. And yeah, we think about this particular situation here. We discussed a couple of chapters ago about the help that was provided to Chile as well, to the people that were in the fire in the fires that happened around our local area in Chile. And again, I don't see other religious organizations doing so much in so little time. And one of the things that characterizes church help, church aid in general, is that they always partner with local organizations or organizations that have they know more, or they have a better system, to take this help to the right people, right? And we can discuss lengthy about this, like all the places in the world that need help desperately. When we think about I don't know, Ukraine, when we think about Iran, when we think about many places in the world, Palestine, right, Gaza, right? I mean, we can discuss lengthy about the huge needs the world has, right, and in terms of help. However, my belief again is rooted in, first, the church will help according to their capacity to help first, right? Second is going to trust local leaders and local organizations to take this aid, this help to the people in need, right? And then is going to invite also members, if they're capable, or if they're willing, to also contribute and help. So it's I think it's the basis of self-reliance, and self-reliance being a staple in our belief system, right? To be spiritually self-reliant, to be financially self-reliant, to be so all those things I think are very connected. So I don't see a mismatch between what the church teaches about these things and what the church does about these things. I don't know. What are your
Yeah.
takes on this?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would disagree slightly when you say that there aren't, although I take your point about us doing a lot in such a short space of time. I think there are other organizations that do mimic or exceed what we do as well, simply because the resources that they have are potentially greater, or they have a greater pool of people who are willing to serve, etc. I think organized religion in general is a good thing. So I grew up in a household which saw organized religion as something which was negative, and I would tend to disagree with that, because when I see, the humanitarian aid that can be achieved by religious organizations with people who are willing to serve, I do think that that's overall a good thing. And we're seeing stories every single week around the world where the church are extending a helping hand and serving those who are in need. So I think that's my take on it. And I specifically like our interfaith efforts when we combine with other religious organizations. I know last week it was covered that at the end of Ramadan in Italy and in various other places, the church, they were opening up their meeting houses for Muslims who wanted to worship. And I particularly like that side of things as well, that we're not trying to be exclusive, we're trying to be inclusive.
Yeah, and yeah, and it's not an easy task to do that, because we've been, criticized uh, extensively about being kind of ostracized sometime in our own, clusters, our own groups. But this definitely shows that we really care about our neighbors, right? And we're trying to live by love thy God and love thy neighbor, right, the best we can. And again, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying that we're striving towards
Mm-hmm.
that goal, right? And as you said, even though we know that we are a church that has reasonable resources, resources are finite, so you can only do as much as you can possibly, and then you try to extend your hands of help as much as you can, making sure that by giving, you're not also leaving all the other people without the help they also need. So I think
Yeah.
it's just reasonable to think that we can do more, we can do better, but at this point we're doing. And I think that's the important thing to recognize, and the more we can do, and I think the more we can involve as well, because sometimes it's just, I've seen this many times, it's just easy to criticize, but when we're asked to come up with better ideas, then we're just shy, right? Because it's just easy to impugnate things. But what about coming up with good ideas and better solutions? Around this area, they've been working on just serve projects, and those are big things, also very community like things, right? Where members of the church um, align or get together with local organizations to help others, right? Community wise, and I think all those efforts are good. They help us individually, they connect us with our community, because sometimes, because of our work, because of our responsibilities or whatever, it's just difficult to connect. And then when you get into those opportunities, then you get to meet new people, and then you get to identify concrete, well established opportunities to serve.
Agreed.
And whether we acknowledge it or not, the church ministering system is part of that too. We're invited, or we're by kind of commandment asked to help our neighbors and to help our community, to visit the widows and the lonely, and the ones in need. And then naturally we won't do that. I don't know about you, but I won't naturally go and visit people just because, right? I mean, it's not in my DNA, although I've been a lifelong member of the church. It's something that I need to be reminded of, and something that I need to be, constantly uh, told that is a good thing. And when I do it, it's great, and I feel great. And every time I visit someone, and then, I don't know, go and pass the sacrament for a person, or give a blessing, I've been given lots of those opportunities recently in my word, and I'm happy, and I feel blessed about that opportunity, right? But I need those opportunities, right? And I'm not the one that seeks those opportunities. So I think organized religion, organized church, elicits those opportunities, and we take that for granted, or we think it's another stone in our backpack of responsibilities. But I've seen personally miracles in my personal life. It has also allowed me to see the silver lining of my own personal experiences, and not to dwell too much on the issues, problems, challenges that I'm facing, but seeing a happy face, a grateful person, because of this very small, effort I did, or another, I don't know, member of the word did, to help, is just pure gold. So just that.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, amen to that. I don't think I have too much to add. I think we've presented a fairly compelling case for organized religion. Shall we
I
move
think so
on?
too. Yes. Yes. The intellectual tide is turning on marriage and civil society. This is something that probably might sound a little bit off topic, but after we discuss it, it's probably not off topic. So this is
So talk us through it.
yes, this is a Deseret news article, right? And it's about two researchers doing research about the impact of families in the society, right? And then how in the last, I don't know, several decades, there has been a kind of discouraging, maybe, or maybe a more negative position towards family units, that is, atomic families, right? Mom, dad, kids, type of thing. And
So this article has just come out this week. That's why we're covering it, right?
yes, yes,
Okay,
and
sure.
it's not necessarily LDS based, but the core of our doctrine is about families, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen a mismatch between what we believe as a church in terms of the importance of families, and what the society in general thinks about families, right? That is, families are not that important as we might think, or they're not It's not the mom, dad, kids set of families. What really matters is all families matter, which I agree with. Right? I mean, all shapes and sizes of families are good, but the family unit itself, I think, the loving and caring is what matters, right? And my point here is that this article is trying to connect the secular idea that families were not important or were not as relevant as, and how this trend has changed in recent years, because data, right, and research has confirmed the positive effects of family upbringing in generations, right? So my take on this is, first, we shouldn't doubt about the importance of families as the essential, glue, or the essential component of the fabric of the society we live in today, right? That's my first, statement. But then, secondly, how this societal trends against family have only eroded the our own personal beliefs about the importance of families, right? And
Mhm.
again, what I'm trying to say here is families, individuals that love and care for others, right? That extend their arms of help, and protect and nourish, and help the next generation to become, I don't know, functional human beings, right? In a contributing to a society. That's my, and that's my expectation, and I always tell that to my wife. That's my expectation with my kids. Like, I just want functional human beings that contribute to a wider core of the society, right? To a wider population. So um what do I like about this article is, again, this contrast, right? How trends, or how this philosophies move from one place to the other, because they're part of the natural trend society may take, while for us as members of the Church of Jesus Christ, family has been in the center and core of all the doctrine and all the discussions we've got, and that hasn't changed
Mhm.
since the church was founded, right? So, although it's always good to take this, external trends with a grain of salt, and to try to understand them, and to, read them through, every now and then we're trying to reinvent the wheel, and I don't think is that contributing, because it's a lot of trial and error, while we've got revealed, doctrinal foundations that tell us that that's the route. It's a sure route, probably
Yeah.
less popular, but sure route. And again, every
Yeah.
now and then, I don't know.
I think I see what you're saying. So, whilst society may change, our church has certain doctrines which won't change. And this article is interesting because it's pointing us back to family, which is something that we stood by all along. So, I think my take on it is that we need to be careful in our definition of family, because not everyone has a nuclear family. And something I learned when I joined the church is that family can take many different forms. We can have our family, which consists of maybe parents and children, but we can also have our church family, which is found within our congregation. But then we even just have a human family. Some of my closest friends I would consider like family to me. And I think what this article is really saying is that the state of the world that we're in, with social media, with the way that we're living our lives, we're really just lacking that basic connection, which makes us human. And the more we can get back to that, I think the happier we're going to be, and the better our lives are going to be because of it. That's what I took from it, at least.
Yeah. And I think it's time for us to wrap this up, right? I think our time here is about to end, and it's been lovely to have this episode together. Thanks, Georgia,
Yeah.
for your insights and your comments, and your accent, of course. I think we all love Georgia's accent, so I hope we're all happy to have, yeah, that accent, because mine is not that fun. So yeah, it's definitely, it reminds me of one of the talk after Elder Kieran, where he said, "Can
Yes.
I
He said,
borrow
"Can I borrow your accent for
your
10
accent for
minutes?"
10
Yeah.
minutes?" Yes.
You know, it's so funny because my accent obviously is nothing unique to me. I mean, I live in England, so everyone around me has pretty much the same accent. So it's funny when people make a point of it because it's just the norm for me. But I really like the Australian accent. My husband's Australian and I really like the Australian accent. But, you know, I suppose we always want what we don't have, don't we? So that's just the way it is. But anyway, listeners, thank you so much for joining us this week for another episode of This Week in Mormons, the International Edition. We encourage you to subscribe to Patreon for just a few dollars a month, where you'll get additional content. And any feedback, we would love to hear it on contact@thisweekinmormons.com. But until next time, thank you so much for joining us. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.